The Bliss Business Podcast, the show about empathy, connection, and consciousness in business. Today's episode is brought to you by Zero Company, your paid search, social media, and programmatic ad experts.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm Steven Sakach here once again with my co-host, Tulio Siragusa. And we've got a special guest who we'll introduce in a moment. Friend of the show, I guess you could say. So we'll be talking with him in a moment. So marketing is often one of the most misunderstood functions in business. You know, you have many founder-led companies in marketing where it becomes kind of reactive. You know, you got a campaign here, another tactic there. You've got, you know, a new tool, a new funnel, a new shiny object to chase, and you're off in a whole bunch of different directions. So without, you know, strategic clarity, the results often scattered activity rather than, you know, predictable, maybe steady growth. Today, we're exploring what it means to build marketing systems that are clear, scalable, ethical, and purpose-led. So we will talk about growth marketing, fractional CMO leadership, messaging, founder dependency automation, revenue optimization, bunch of stuff, how to create businesses that can create impact beyond just profit. I'm going to get down to it. So Tulio, introduce our special guest today.
It'll be my pleasure. Good to have you again. Today, our guest is Gareth Bain. He's an award-winning Fractional Chief Marketing Officer and Growth Strategist and founder of Gotlegs Digital. Gareth has more than 17 years of experience helping SaaS, FinTech, PropTech, and technology-driven businesses move from reactive marketing to predictable growth. And his work spans go-to-market strategy, positioning, performance marketing, automation, and revenue optimization. He has led growth and marketing initiatives for brands like American Express, Lego, Blackstone, and MoneyGram. It has supported startups and scale-ups through high growth phases, fundraising journeys, and IPO readiness. All the easy stuff, Gareth. Through Gotlegs Digital, Gareth also connects business growth with human impact. The company's purpose-led mission has helped contribute to the donation of more than 500 prosthetic legs to amputee survivors across Africa. Gareth, welcome back to the Bliss Business Podcast.
It's great to be back. Thanks so much for having me.
Gareth, so as I kind of mentioned, many founder-led companies, they reach a point where marketing becomes this collection of disconnected activities instead of like that true growth system. From your perspective, why do businesses get stuck in that reactive marketing that we mentioned?
I think the biggest challenge with your founder-led businesses is that it starts with the founder. Like, it is the founder's idea. It's the founder that runs the business. So everything revolves around the founder to start with. And sometimes the founder becomes the bottleneck within the business. And what they need to do is they need to kind of remove themselves from that day-to-day business running and work rather on their business rather than in their business. But it's hard because, you know, as a small business, as you grow and you one-man band, then a 5-man band, then a 15-man band, everything comes to you. But as you start to scale and you have now 15 people, 20 people, 30 people, it's a very different machine. It's a different beast than when you were a small business, where you could just all sit in a room together and ask questions. Whereas when you're in, you know, 1 million, 5 million, 20 million, it's a very different business. So that's the biggest challenge that I see a lot of founder businesses face. It's being a bit of the bottleneck within the business themselves and not knowing how to take themselves out, not knowing how to recruit the right people that make their roles a lot easier. And that then leads into, you know, very sporadic or short-term kind of like hires. The founder might say, you know, we need to get clients, or it's December, we need to run a campaign. Let's do some Google ads. So it's very reactive and it's very short-term. It's very campaign-driven. And it's very specific. Whereas what they need to do is they need to kind of just step back and go, right, what is my marketing strategy? And how is that going to work for my business? And what do I need to do to step away from that? So by bringing someone in who's a lot more strategic, it kind of allows the CEO to just hand that off to someone that's been there before, that's done that before, and allows them to kind of step back and actually go, right, where are we taking this business in 5 to 10 years? And how is my marketing, my strategic marketing hire going to assist me in matching revenue to marketing, or matching my goals of 5 years to my marketing goals, rather than saying, right, next week we need an ad campaign, let's put an email together, something like that. So very kind of like unpredictable and sporadic. When you've got systems like this built, it becomes very easy to know your marketing and understand things. But I don't think the founders have that foresight when they first get going, because not a lot of them are in the marketing side of things. You might be a tech startup and you're very tech based, or you're in property and you're an expert in property. A lot of founders I work with are not marketing focused, so it's something that doesn't necessarily come natural for them, and it's a little bit of a struggle.
Now, you work with a lot of companies that sometimes they need a CMO but can't afford a full-time CMO. Maybe they're at a growth stage, or they're, like you said, founders not ready for marketing. They have a lot to learn. What makes the fractional CMO model so valuable for businesses today, especially in growth stage businesses?
I really like the fractional model approach, and it's quite new to the market, and I'm glad that it's kind of found its footing, because it really does help scale up and startup businesses grow. Potentially some enterprise businesses, but they've got the systems all put in place. It's more the startups and scale-ups. And you look at it as in, someone comes in for a short period of time with the expertise that you need to solve the problem that you face right away, and then they build a system or a roadmap and step back and then allow the teams to kind of sort that out. So that leaves a lot less reliance on a founder or a company to go, I need to find a person, I need to recruit the person, I need to have these, what if they don't fit? How do I get rid of them? And the long, the salary, implications that they have. When you work with a fractional, they're there for a specific purpose. I often use the example of being an architect. If you're doing a new build on a project, your architect comes in there, they do the drawings, and they basically tell everyone where everything needs to go, how it needs to work, when the planning needs to be done. But they're not in the project the entire time. They do a lot of work in the front end to get everything up and running. And then they step back and then they let the disciplined teams implement what needs to be done. And that's what I kind of use as an example for fractional CMOs. It's great because it helps a business to build that structure. They come from an outside-in perspective, so they bring both different and broader expertise from other niches and other fields and different sizes of businesses. But they're in for a short period of time and they work directly with the founder CEO. So there's no internal politics. There's no not understanding, how things work. They're in there to do a specific job and create this roadmap, which helps businesses to grow. And a good example of what a CEO does is he'll come in there and he'll go, right, these are the bottlenecks within the business, and it's boom, 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 where it might have taken the business a while to have figured that out, just based on the expertise. How do they drive pipeline? What is their budget looking like? Are they spending too much for advertising? Do they have a higher, cost per acquisition? So is your CAC too high? With marketing out there at the moment, and you can do everything, what's the biggest priority? So a fractional really comes in there and goes, right, this is where you are, this is where you want to be, and strategically, this is how we get there, and builds that roadmap. And then because of their rate, they're able to pass that off to someone who's maybe a more junior. So that's a great opportunity for startups where they don't have big budgets for big teams, is your fractional CMO can kind of come in, build this roadmap, and then build an SOP as well, which allows the founder to go and say, right, I'm going to get a virtual assistant or a grad or an intern to follow this system. And then you keep the fractional on as a monthly, quarterly, consultant to just check that strategic goals are aligned and that we're still solving the bigger problems that the business needs to solve.
I love the analogy to the architect. I just had to say that because I've seen people build stuff without one. It doesn't go well. Like you need a blueprint of where stuff's gonna go. Anyway, I love that analogy.
Yeah, and that's I think the kind of the stage that you're, as a founder, you're kind of looking for what's the next stage. And if you thought about it traditionally, well, I'd love to, have a CMO or head of marketing at a high level, but sometimes that's just maybe too big of a leap, right? You said like financially. What are the, thinking about that, what are some of the signs for a company that has kind of outgrown just that founder-led marketing, and now they're thinking about that next step? What are some of those problem areas that you kind of often see that you're coming in and solving?
Yeah, I think a lot of the time it is founder-driven marketing. The founder is still very heavily involved. The creatives need to be approved by the founder. The copy needs to be approved because everything sits inside of the founder's head. There's no systems within the business at a small stage. It's all, everyone kind of knows what they're doing, and it's all in their head. So it's important to have like key man risk kind of identified as well, and making sure that if anything goes wrong or if there's no one to approve, what is the system that we use to make that decision. And that's why building things like brand guidelines and playbooks and go-to-market plans and roadmaps and having marketing assets in place takes that decision away from that one person. Maybe one day they like red, and the next day they're like blue. They're in a good mood, they're in a bad mood. It's very emotional, very reactive. Whereas, when you go in there and you build a system, and the system is based on data, then it's anyone can pick it up and follow it.
Yeah, think about that. So let's talk a little bit about why clarity is so much more valuable sometimes than complexity in marketing.
So I mean, clarity is good to kind of, you can't measure what you can't see, So sometimes when there's chaos everywhere and everything's just going around, there's, an area of chaoticness that you can't be like, see the wood from the trees. So by giving yourself clarity, you're giving yourself visualization of things. You're also analyzing your numbers. You're taking a pause for a minute, rather than the chaotic, sporadic approaches to what has previously been done, where it was founder-led and not strategic. Also, again, with it being not strategic and being a bit of chaotic, complexity comes in because founders don't necessarily know, or the teams within small marketing or small businesses don't necessarily know what channel is right. So complexity comes in where it's like, well, let's try social for a bit. Let's try Google. We need to be everywhere. We need to be doing email. And then you find nothing seems to work. Now you've just got a bigger problem at a larger scale, burning money across all different platforms. You don't understand your data. You don't know where the problems are coming in. And it just becomes a right old mess. And it's at that point where I usually find the founder or the small marketing team, they throw their hands up and we're like, we just don't know what to do. We've tried everything and we don't know how to scale the business, get it working again. We've tried this agency and they didn't get us results, and they tried this agency and they were burnt. And what they needed was clarity. What they needed was strategy. What they need was simplicity to start with, and a plan. So work the plan.
I think you said something really important that should be highlighted. There's so many businesses, they wouldn't dare not do their taxes at the end of the year without a good CPA, right? Because the CPA is tracking the laws, the trends, making sure you get the best possible deductions. I mean, you could try to do it yourself, but you might end up getting audited. You might end up costing you a lot more. So you pay for a professional to do this because that's what they do. And yet so many brands and founders are like, I can do this marketing thing. It's not like that. There is an expertise and a certain knowledge that you need to invest in to keep up with the latest trends, because the algorithms change all the time and methodologies change all the time. So So it's so important to acknowledge as a founder, like, this is not my forte, unless you're a marketing founder, right? And even then, you might be drinking the Kool-Aid too much. You're too emotionally attached. So it's an interesting comment you made there.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. As a founder, you should be growing, and focusing on the bigger picture of the business and surrounding yourself with smarter people. Fractional CMO is just one element of things. You're fractional COO, CTO, CFO. You can start your business on a fractional basis for the first 3 months, maybe at a high run rate, but that positions you and elevates you so much further than if you did, let me figure this out myself. Stand on those shoulders of people who've been there before.
On the show, so we talk a lot about systems, and we're kind of going through this process right now of, talking about systems that you'll be adding and getting clarity in those systems. And one of the things we know is that when you're in this growth stage, this is when you're starting to systemize stuff, but it's also when you start to maybe even lose some of your culture. You lose some of you lost maybe a little bit what you helped build. So I think maybe some founders might be a little scared at that time, about losing, letting go a little bit. But it is important to really kind of, in growth, you got to systemize these things. And from your standpoint, what are important marketing systems that maybe a founder-led business needs to build in order to grow predictably?
First and foremost, I would say is the system around the founder. At the moment, everything is inside their head, and they run the business. And what we need to do is we need to get that information out and create a system that aligns with them and the business and the culture of the organization that they're growing. Because at that stage, it's still small enough that, the first few employees, they might either have equity or they have a huge amount invested in this business. They're there for a love of the business. So what I see time and time again is founders just handing stuff over, saying, right, I'm going to hire a marketing person and they're going to do the marketing. And then next minute, why is this done like this? This is wrong. This is incorrect. This isn't aligned with us. But there's been no system or transfer of ownership, delegation of authority in terms of the process. So what we need to do is we need to kind of sit the founder down and just extract everything from their head into a document, into a system. How do you want marketing to look? What is good? What is bad? What is wrong? What is right? What do you like? What don't you like? And we create this systems process. And from that, the team can work. You can create the culture from there. You can create, the hiring structure. You can create, how you want marketing to look, how you want to come across, your ethos, your brand, your values. And once you've got that outlaid, it's much easier to then grow the business and the company following those guidelines. And then once you start bringing those people in, I think it's important that you get key man risk. You've now hired your first marketer, and they're following your SOP or your guidelines, but they're going to start building out a whole system of their own. And key man risk goes, if anything happens to that one person, again, it's all in their mind. So we need them to create their marketing SOP, their finance SOP, their ops SOP, that if anything happens to them or if they leave, the new person can come in and just continue that consistency. So SOPs and key man risks, I think, are the next two biggest things that businesses need to build a system about. And then once those are in, then you go obviously into the marketing side. What is the buyer journey? What is your cost per acquisition cost, your data transfers, your learning loops, your feedback, loops, and things like that. So, those elements then become very important to businesses.
So let's dig in a little bit, because the work includes often go-to-market strategy, positioning, identifying the right ICP, performance, marketing, automation, looking at ways to optimize revenue. There's so many components that could be off or not in place at all. When you enter a new business as a fractional CMO, how do you decide what to fix first?
Yeah, that's always the tricky one. And it's a mixture because you're going in there with very much a strategic long-term vision. This is where we're going to position your company. But the founder's like, oh, I'm just forking out a lot of money. I need to get that revenue. I need some sales in the door quickly. So it's that tricky balance of long-term strategic approach, but also the quick wins. So what do you need to do in the first 90 days to show proof of concept that this works and that you can run something that's going to generate money? And to do that, what I usually do is I kind of go into the business and I do an audit of the business. And I see what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong. Let's look at how much they're spending. And I pull up an audit report, which is kind of something that businesses don't usually do. You know, we've started and we've just moved on. We've never audited ourselves. And that allows you to see where you are at the moment, what's happening, what's working, what's not working. And then from there, you can look at kind of building into kind of a strategy, but with the mindset of competitor analysis and gap analysis as well. So you've done your audit, you know what's happening in the business internally. Now let's go out and do a competitor analysis, what your competitors are doing. And from that, you can then surmise where the opportunities and the gaps are on the market, and you build the gap analysis. And then from there, you then move into a roadmap, a strategy on how you can go and actually execute this. And that execution needs to then include, right, what's my quickest win that I can get in the first 60 days, 90 days, versus the long-term strategic approach. And what I usually look at doing things there, it's what are the quick fixes? What are the things they're doing wrong? How do we look at the ICP? Are we using the right comms to the ICP and the channels? You know, a lot of the times it's like our audience is everyone, and we communicate with everyone. You know, it's breaking that down, getting narrow with that, getting smaller. You know, really refining that to be like, right, we can't be using general, vague language.
You're making my stomach hurt just hearing that. And it's like
that triage is what separates the pros from the not so pros.
I know, and no, I'm just hearing that. I'm going through stuff too, Lou. Been there. The other thing that when you're talking, Gareth, that I also think about too in the marketing stages, you'll come into a situation and a founder really will pay attention to this one metric or something. And it could be like just a sales metric or something that we find this a lot. And it's like, hey, no, really your most important metrics are this and this. What you're laughing. You've been there too. So yeah, what metrics should founders pay attention to, and which ones are like distractions?
Yeah, I mean, as you're saying that to me, in my little monkey mind is saying, you know, sell them what they want, but give them what they need. You know, so
yeah.
So it's definitely, with my background of being in growth marketing, it's definitely about going, yes, we can use those metrics, but we're also going to include some of these metrics as well. You know, because no one likes someone to come in from outside the organization to be like, right, those are all wrong. Those are your vanity metrics. They don't move the dial. Those are revenue generation. They're like, those are great. But what we're going to do is we're going to add more value to those, and we're going to include these ones. And then you can start showing them that how your metrics are actually the ones that move the needle. What are the numbers at the top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel? Where are the problems lying? How do we identify that? And can we see those with your numbers? You know, so they come to the realization themselves that their numbers might not have been the best ones. And it's not of any fault of their own, because they might not be marketing experts. They might have, we need to track clicks because clicks are important.
And this isn't even something that plagues like the smaller companies too. You'd be surprised, well, maybe not you guys, but we've seen very big companies with like looking at the wrong bullseyes very often, where it's like, why are they looking at this? There's
an agency, a Dutch agency, that did this little video skit. It's hilarious. And it's like, there's the new marketer that just got hired, and the person sits down with them and is like, so let's talk about performance. Yes. Let me see. We had 15 ebooks that were downloaded today. Did any of those turn into a lead? No, but we got 100 different views on this new blog post. And so all these metrics that were great, but absolutely zero business outcome. And it was just hilarious to me to watch this. It's like, this is what happens.
Yeah.
Oh, it should have all these performance metrics.
Yeah,
they translate into revenue.
It plagues a lot of people out there, not just, small businesses growing. It's, you'd be surprised. But hey, we've got a audience question from LinkedIn. Let's cue that up. So what is the biggest marketing lesson you've learned working with big brands that a tiny startup can use today?
I think the biggest lesson, so with my background coming from big enterprise businesses like American Express, MoneyGram, Blackstone, they've got all the $1 million budgets that we've spent over international campaigns. I would say that they are very focused on data, and they're very focused on understanding their audience. And that's something that from a startup, after I left big enterprise businesses, I joined bootstrapped startups, where they have a runway of 6 months. And it was like, right, we need guerrilla marketing to work. We need to do something that's going to get traction very quickly. And I took from that, really understanding the data, understanding your audience, and getting to know like the specific problems that they're facing, and not going too broad. It's narrowing it down. It's being specific. It's being targeted. It's not trying to boil the ocean. When you're first getting started and you're first needing traction, you just need those first few clients. And to get those first few clients, you need to resonate with them. You can't be a generic message. You need to have your clients saying they understand me. Now, the big enterprise businesses, they have the brand, they have the money, they have the prestige. Small businesses can't compete with that. So where you need to get cut through is understanding your audience really, really well, being really specific with them. And you can only do that by knowing the data, knowing your ICP, and really tailoring your communications to them.
Now, there's been a lot of studies and a lot of stats proving the impact that being purpose-led has on a business. And I know, Gareth, that you have a big purpose you stand on, and I use the word stand on, pun intended here. God Legs Digital, you've got a very powerful purpose. The company is connected not only to helping businesses grow, but also helping people move forward in their life through prosthetic leg donations. Your bio shares that through charitable initiative, you've helped contribute to the donation of more than 500 prosthetic legs to amputee survivors across Africa. How has that mission shaped the way you think about business growth? And how can other businesses, and why should other businesses be equally purposeful?
So I think the naming and the purpose of the business was kind of in the foundations. I wanted to create a purpose-driven business. I was in corporate. I left corporate. I joined up startups and scale-up businesses. And what I noticed there was there's a lot of unethical cowboys running around in the marketing space trying to sell tactics that don't necessarily work, or use jargon words that sound great on a telephone call, but you just really hoodwink CEOs, and they charge an exorbitant fee. So when I was seeing this, I was like, I need to go out there and create an ethical, purpose-driven business. And what does that look like? And kind of in unpacking that, I decided that I wanted to kind of make an immediate impact. And when you put it out to the universe, the universe listens, and they kind of give you, they guide you in certain ways. And I was scrolling through Facebook one day, and I saw this beautiful video, and you might have seen it. It's an oldie but a goodie, where there's a young girl who goes into a doctor's room and she's deaf, and the doctor gives her the hearing aid for the first time, and she hears immediately, and it's life-changing. It's beautiful. And I was like, I want to do something like that. And initially I played around with like ear and here, and nothing fit. And I was just like, how do I get something that resonates with me? And I was doing more research, and something came along with like, I heard the slogan, "That's got legs." And I thought, you know what, I can use that. And I played with that a bit more. And, in the marketing sites, that's got legs, this has got legs, this has got legs. I was like, that can work. Now, what can I do from a purpose-driven side to make that work for a business? So I started researching, and it came up on amputee, donating legs to amputee survivors was something that an organization was doing. And with me being half English, half South African, it was very much like rooted in South Africa that I had to give back. So that's where the name Got Legs Digital came up, the purpose-led business. We help people to get legs and grow. And it basically defined everything that we've done in the business. So when we've hired people, purpose has been at the forefront of this is what we do, this is who we help. So we've hired people based on the purpose, and people have wanted to join us based on that. We've also retained staff, because what we do at Got Legs Digital is we kind of close the loop. When we work with clients, we donate a percentage of our profits to donating prosthetic legs throughout Africa. And instead of like KPIs, we set up something called KMIs, or key moments of impact. And when we have our quarterly meetings with clients, we go and say to them, by working with us, you've helped Joseph. Joseph didn't have a leg. He now has a prosthetic leg. You are now enabling him to go to university. So now, rather than him being dependent on his family, he is now a contributor, because he's getting educated, he's going to work, he's being able to provide for his family. And then we update on Joseph's progress while working with clients. So client retention is huge, because people want to make sure that they are helping the people on the journey. So that's really what drives us. I mean, we all know business is hard, and there's days where we wake up and we just don't want to get out of bed, and we're just like, I should just have a job. It'd be much easier just having a job.
By the way, I mentioned that KMI so many times, and because I interview like 3 people a week, right? And I was like, we had a guest that said KMI, and it stuck with me. And as you mentioned, I'm like, it was Gareth who said that. So I remember where the KMI came from. I love that. I've used that many times. That stuck with me. Key moments of impact. I love that.
Yeah. Gareth, when you're talking, so you started with that idea from the beginning, and I know there's a lot of companies out there that are starting to evolve, but they've been around for a while, but they're like, we really need to build some higher purpose into what we're doing. But they struggle operationalizing it. So, it's just like a message on the website or something, or it just never gets traction, kind of like they want. How can leaders help get traction inside, maybe an existing company with their purpose in a meaningful way?
Yeah, I think I was fortunate to create it when I started the business. There's some people who are probably listening to the show today who are going, right, we have a business, we want to move into something like that. What I would say to them is, it's very much about going, what does your business do at the moment? And how can you associate purpose to that? A good example is the shoe brand Tom's. And they have the example, buy one, give one. So for every shoe bought, they donate a shoe. So if you are in, I don't know, we'll use another example for me or for a marketing agency. You're in a marketing agency. What purpose could you do for your organization? Well, you could maybe educate people on how to run Google ads, Facebook ads, disadvantaged communities, people with disabilities, learning disabilities, and give them a sense of income, purpose, and potentially working in your company. So it's very much aligned to what you do, I would say. I see it too often where businesses go, right, we're a recruitment company, and for every hire, we donate 10 trees. And you go, what is the connection here? What is the link? And it's hard for people to buy into that purpose. Whereas if it's like we have a graduate program where we find other people jobs or internships or apprenticeships, that's something that they can buy into, and building a culture around that is so important. Get the team involved. Get everyone in the room with some pizzas. what are they passionate about? And what would they like to do? And how would they get involved? And what would this look like? And how would this fit into the business? It's not necessarily the founder's responsibility to force this down the employee's throat. It's a community thing. It's bringing everyone together and getting them to buy in it, because they'll sell it. They'll be your brand ambassadors.
Yeah, it has to be a community thing. And this is one of the interesting things. Like, if you're a marketing person out there, I really do think you've got a tremendous opportunity to lead in this area, just because you can tell stories about your clients in some way, right? And nothing gets better in those stories when you're starting to, like Gareth said, kind of align some of your charities and things like that with the same kind of work that you do. And then you get this really good story. Whereas if it's just some, I don't know, sometimes it gets treated like a little checkbox, like, hey, we want to do, something like you said, donate to the trees or something. You want to do something, but it just doesn't quite align. And I think that's where you don't get that traction, is, the point you're making.
Absolutely. And again, because it's an authentic story, it does have legs, pun intended. So
exactly. That's a good way to remember it. Hey, so Gareth, one of the questions we always ask people on this show, because it kind of aligns with our purpose, is what role does or should love play in business?
Yeah, I think it's an important role. You need to have it as a business owner. It's not just about, making money at the end of the day. It's about doing good for communities. It's about giving back. We're all human at the end of the day. So, having something like this also connects you to your audience, to your community. And that connection there is much stronger than it is if it's just purely based on systems or a KPI. A KMI is much stronger than a KPI. So you want to make sure that you are building something that's connecting people, and that it has longevity, that it's, both your clients and your team buy into, because then they will be the ones singing the praises as they go on. And it also differentiates you in the market as well. People will see that you are authentic. People will see that it's, they want to work with you. My purpose has drawn a lot of clients towards me going, I just like what you do, and I want to be associated with that. And sometimes they've been a little bit not so harsh on the metrics, but because we know we're working to a greater purpose. And we've had kind of, we tackle tough conversations, but we know that there's a purpose story that we can kind of have there, which brings us back and unites us again, rather than our numbers are down. What are we doing? Our numbers are down. This isn't working. There's always that purpose story, which is the kind of thing that brings everyone together and makes it worthwhile at the end of the day.
Gareth, there's people will say, what's love got to do with marketing? But in marketing, love can show up as honesty, and telling the truth is really about what is working and what is not working and what customers actually need. How do you think ethical marketing reflects care for both the business and the people it serves? If people needed to remember one thing from today, what would you say that is?
Well, so from an ethical side of things, it's important to go in there and also see whether you can add value. As I say, it's honesty, it's trust, it's making sure that you can deliver. Again, just as a, I walk the talk, I drink my own Kool-Aid. Just this week, I've turned 2 customers away because I don't feel that they are right for the services that I offer to businesses. And I think that that's important. And I think that that's authentic, because if you jump into a relationship where you're not right for the business, but you need to make a quick buck, you're only in it for the short term. You know that you're going to get kicked out after a month or 2 or 3. You know that there'll be no testimonial, no referral, no case study, nothing that you could use from that. So there's no real benefit from that. So the money that's come in, I see that as kind of tarred, tainted money. I would rather spend my energy finding a business that I can truly add value in and truly, bring love or, again, a purpose to, and that fulfills you so much more than just that quick fix.
Yeah. Tony Robbins said once, success is very personal. It's what you experience when you achieve things, but fulfillment is what happens when you help others achieve things. So if people want to learn about you, get to know you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so all the normal channels. I've got my website. It's gotlegsdigital.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's Gareth Bain. And again, all Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. Connect with me there. And yeah, happy to kind of continue the conversations or answer any other questions that might have come up from the podcasts.
Gareth, thanks for joining us today. Thank you to our audience as well for the great questions as always and tuning in. When marketing is rooted in purpose, truth, and care, it becomes more than promotion. It becomes a system for movement, helping businesses move forward, helping people move forward, and helping impact move through the world. So maybe ask yourself, what are your key moments of impact? And we will see you next time on the Bliss Business Podcast.